Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 4th of August 2021, and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of the show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, by the meeting between, the telephonic conversation that was held between Anthony Blinken and the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani as far as the Afghan peace talks are concerned, the speeding up these peace talks is concerned, and of course the condemnation of the attacks by the Afghan Taliban. But in this whole context, how relevant now is the current Afghan government? How important are the negotiations between the United States government and the Afghan government? And also, how important is the deal that was signed between the Afghan Taliban as well as the US government? Now that the Afghan Taliban are slowly and steadily taking control of different areas of Afghanistan, how much important is this current state of affairs and the role of the United States of America, the role of the Afghan government and Pakistan? Let's then go to our second segment, and we will be talking about the Foreign Office spokesperson that has said that India's claim of acting as a responsible country was a hypocrite's masquerade of virtue. He said, quote unquote, "It is highly hypocritical of a country that has systematically done away with any semblance of moderation, efforts for dialogue and abiding by international law to project itself as the voice of these three." Now, we will be talking about what is the current state of affairs, because now that India has the presidency of the United Nations Security Council for a month's period, will it hold true to the democratic principles, or will it continue doing what it is doing? Then we will be talking about what is happening in Turkey and the blazes that have engulfed different areas of Turkey. There's also a Turkish thermal plant that has been engulfed by these fires. As the government and the administration are battling to finish these fires, a lot of damage has occurred in Turkey. Then we will be talking about COVID-19 and of course how it has impacted Pakistan and other countries, and how the fourth wave is slowly and steadily creeping into the lives of everyone in Pakistan, and what needs to be done in order to curtail the spread of this pandemic. Let's begin with our first story, and that concerns, ladies and gentlemen, the Afghan peace process, the future of Afghanistan in the current state of turmoil that Afghanistan is embroiled in the whole context of the conversation between Anthony Blinken and Ashraf Ghani. How important is the US government and the Afghan government in the current state of affairs? More in the following report.
The Afghan endgame presents the most pressing strategic dilemma to the regional and global actors. The prospect of the country sliding into another protracted internecine war has raised the urgency to carve out a sustainable political roadmap through robust diplomacy. In order to discuss the fast deteriorating security situation of Afghanistan, top US diplomat Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke with the incumbent Afghan President Ashraf Ghani to reiterate enduring US commitment to Afghanistan. Both sides underscored the need to ratchet up peace process in order to instigate comprehensive political settlement safeguarding political rights of all Afghans, including women and girls. This telephonic conversation materialized against the backdrop of an extraordinary joint session of the Afghan parliament on Monday, whereby the Afghan president Ashraf Ghani vowed to bring the Taliban to their knees in 6 months through US-backed security strategy. The joint US-Afghan government commitment to resolve present situation indicates fundamental convergence of interests between both the countries regarding future of Afghanistan. It's pertinent to mention here that the fierce seed and regain ongoing saga between the Afghan security forces and Taliban has not only inflicted deadly blow to peace process, but also debilitated the political security architecture of the country. Afghan political elite, backed by US and international community, has persistently urged the Taliban to either engage through meaningful political dialogue or face crushing defeat on the battlefield. Earlier, Premier Imran Khan criticized flawed US-Afghan strategy while reiterating that there is no military solution in Afghanistan. The Premier elaborated the worst-case scenario as being one where Afghanistan descends into a civil war.
To talk more about the current situation that Afghanistan is embroiled in and the future of the Afghan peace process, we've been joined by Moazzam Hashmi. He's an Afghan affairs expert. Moazzam Hashmi sir, thank you very much to have joined us. So when you see all these comments by the US government that it will that it reiterates the support to the Afghan government and the future of Afghanistan and the Afghan peace process. How optimistic are you?
Thank you for inviting me, WhatsApp. Well, I'm pessimistic and cynical about the Afghan situation. I'm not very optimistic. The reason is that look at Pakistan-US relationship. It has never been, it has always been a bumpy ride. We had good episodes as well, very good episodes as well, rather. But you see, the problem is right now, US has left stillborn peace in Afghanistan and want other peoples to fix it. What's going to happen over there, what has started happening over there. So I'm cynical about the situation. The problem is that, Pakistan wants US to trust, whereas the US want to limit Pakistan to certain quarters. Like for instance, I would say they US, in my opinion, wants to restrict Pakistan to just functional relationship, not very flowery kind of a relationship as we used to have long ago. So this
Where
is
does
not
that
going to
leave
have.
Afghanistan, Moazzam Hashmi Sahab? Where does that leave the current situation that Afghanistan is embroiled in when the US says that it is committed to the future of Afghanistan, the peace in Afghanistan, but on the other hand, it is exiting Afghanistan and more or less most of its forces have already left the country. How do you feel the US could continue directly or indirectly as far as their commitment to peace in Afghanistan is concerned?
Well, US will remain committed. In my opinion, you may feel disagree with me, but it would remain committed with Afghanistan as long as it works for it. Right now, it works for it because your opponent, for instance, China, right over there with its Belt and Road Initiative over there. Now you have left enough mess for China to clean, and USA wants others to clean this mess. How this is going to happen? This is not going to happen like that easily. So it, as for the future is concerned, when things will be right for US to jump into the field, and when it is beneficial for it, right now it's not beneficial for the US, so they have left. Now the
But
other
how
people
can the
wants to do
US
it.
jump, in your point of view, Moazzam Hashmi Sahab? Now, I mean, their presence is more or less
Yes.
not that significant
Let,
as it used to be in
yeah.
Afghanistan. Do you feel that they're going to uh, uh, do something of a kind of a base in some neighboring country from where they will continue to survey Afghanistan, or is there going to be some other kind of a solution to this?
In the near future, I don't see that the US is directly jumping into it. The US has brought NATO ally Turkey in the situation, and we'll see that how we have Pakistan has been very clear about letting its soil being used against any attacks or any
All right,
kind of
Moazzam
a
Hashmi
strategy.
Sahab, we'll continue our
Right.
conversation, but after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we are in conversation with Moazzam Hashmi Sahab, Afghan affairs expert, to talk about the current situation that engulfs Afghanistan and what is the way forward as far as any kind of peace in the country is concerned. Moazzam Hashmi Sahab, there are, of course, we see contradictory statements from the Afghan government as well as from the Afghan Taliban. The Afghan Taliban tell President Ghani that his time is up. The Afghan president said that he's going to defeat the advancing Taliban in 6 months period. Who should we believe in?
Well, as far as their Afghan government's capability to deal with Taliban, uh, you know, um, I'll just take it as a political statement. You know why? The reason is, at least for 10, 12 years, I know the people, both Americans and Germans, who have been training Afghan security forces. I've never feel them being satisfied with the training and and the confidence that Afghan security forces can handle the situation on their own. I've never seen any optimism, any confidence in them that they can do it. So this is one point. This is a minus point. So I don't know what kind of a fairy tale President, Honorable President Ghani is talking about. I don't think the government has an capability, and particularly the government, which has never echoed beyond Kabul.
Of course, when we say that the Afghan government has never echoed beyond Kabul, do you feel that there is a resolve from the Afghan government currently as we speak to move in some kind of a positive direction or maybe go towards dialogue, or do you feel this point is more or less dead as far as future of talks between the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government are concerned? Constructive talks, I mean.
Well, meaningful or constructive talks, I would say that, in reality, minus Kabul. The thing is that, center of negotiation has already been shifted. It's a Doha. Some last year, some talks were even in Malaysia, that were not much publicized on the media. Turkey was also there. So Kabul government, why you want to bring it? Taliban's don't recognize that government, and this government doesn't have any force in it to do anything. Now, what the US is doing is playing on both sides. They know that Taliban are a reality. They could not do anything about it. And also, the US want the fire to continue this inferno. The reason is that to create as much difficulties for BRI project or other things until the US become part of it. Yes, US is talking about the future. That is not the near future. US talking about the future where USA would be a meaningful partner in the CPEC or the BRI, or India even become a partner to the CPEC, then you
All
can
right,
see
all
some
right.
peace
Moazzam
over there
Hashmi
in the.
Saab, thank you very much to have given us your valuable input as far as the current situation in Afghanistan is concerned, and of course, the future of Afghan peace process is concerned. More after this short break. Stay tuned. Now, our second story concerns India, that has become the President of the United Nations Security Council for a period of 1 month starting from the 1st of August this month. At the same time, there has been a statement that came from the Indian External Affairs Minister in which she talked about 3 key priorities for India during the presidency of the UNSC, and that has been severely criticized by our Foreign Office correspondent. More in the following report.
To garner a seat at the table, India will take over the presidency of the UN Security Council on the 1st of August. This development materialized by virtue of routine organizational decorum, whereby rotation in alphabetical order of the member states' official names in English conferred presidency to India from France. Owing to having a brazen precedent of subversion, sabotage and meddling in internal affairs of other regional countries, there are growing speculations that the notorious regional reprobate will not do justice with its assigned role. As India assumes the United Nations Security Council presidency for August, Pakistan's ambassador to the UN, Munir Akram, noted that Islamabad will be watchful but not concerned. In first presidency during its 2021-22 tenure, India will reportedly organize 3 high-level meetings centered upon maritime security, counterterrorism, and promotion of multilateralism. Diplomatic circles have cautioned that India will attempt to maneuver its position for sake of narrow geopolitical interests and self-serving domestic political millage. While having a history of hatching conspiracies against Pakistan and its infamous botched efforts to diplomatically isolate Pakistan, New Delhi is not ready for course correction, and hence it will probably spearhead its smear campaign against Islamabad. Pakistan is reportedly ready to undauntedly counter any any malicious Indian designs. Furthermore, as a responsible global actor and staunch advocate of multilateralism, Pakistan urged India to abide by relevant norms and rules. It's pertinent to mention here that India is long dragging its feet on its legal obligation to implement the UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir.
Now to talk more about India's presidency of the UNSC and whether it will be responsible enough to continue during its 1 month. Seeing what is happening in India, we've been joined by Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba. She's a foreign affairs expert. Ma'am, thank you very much to have joined us. When you see that India assumes presidency, of course it's a routine affair. It goes on in alphabetical order of the UN Security Council. Do you feel what is happening in India and the way the Indian government is managing its own people and what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that the statement of the Indian External Affairs Minister holds true or untrue? What's your take on that, the three priorities that he talks about?
As Henry Kissinger said, that it is not important what words a nation has been used, but the most important is the actions the nation is taking. So if we see the actions of Mr. Modi and his regime, unfortunately, they are based on propaganda. They look like for to please the populism available, and then for the appeasement of domestic vote bank. So biggest problem is, or we have to very carefully monitor and see and be vigilant about it, that if India uses this position to forge or to construct propaganda to support Mr. Modi's regime on the domestic front right there in India, within India. Therefore, whatever Indian external minister has said, we have to wait and see that if India abide by these principles and these ideas, because the chances are higher, because when we see even whether they are nuclear weapons or Indian nuclear program or COVID policy, Modi always used it for domestic leverages, for domestic benefits. Even at international front, Modi does different acts which can, like FATF issue. India used FATF issue as a feather in the crown of Mr. Modi to appease the radical Hindu vote bank at domestic front. So all
But it's still doing that, ma'am, with all due respect, it is still doing that. But when we talk about the three priorities of India, and I'd really like to quote the Indian External Minister on that, he talks about voice of moderation, advocate of dialogue, proponent of international law. I mean, does India even hold true on any of these three?
Umar, you know much well, because you do program on these issues almost every day. When it comes to international law, we all know that how responsible international actor India is. If India would be abiding by international law, you would not be using pellet guns in Kashmir. India would not converted Kashmir into a seized area. Kashmir would not be an Indian colony, because colonization is not allowed as per international law. And when it comes to dialogue, it is the Modi regime which refrained from initiating any dialogue with Pakistan during last like two consecutive tenures Modi got. So when they say they believe in dialogue, that sounds funny for a student of South Asian studies, or for a student of the peace and conflict studies, strategic studies, who are dealing with the dynamics of this region. And then these and those nice terms Indian external minister used, they actually created the fears in our mind, because these are too good to be true, that the Modi regime has never ever followed these principles. Modi, even we all know,
But ma'am,
like,
you
it
know,
is not
the
like my
Indian External
opinion.
Affairs Minister points these three priorities and the whole world laps it up. I mean, this is something that I fail to understand. And I'm sure you also do not comprehend why the whole United Nations talks does not react to what the Indian External Affairs Minister has just laid out as his priorities. The only country that is talking about it is Pakistan. Why is that so?
Number one, maybe the reason is that Pakistan maybe is the only country in the world which understands India too well. We know India, we know Indian politics, Indian aspirations, because we are victim to that. So that is why number one, Pakistan is the most vocal country, and all other countries, they would speak up only when their interests would be on stake, or when their interests would be hurt. So right now, India, as I said earlier, is following a policy of appeasement, which we call look good. Like whenever, like you know that how India is performing on the index of this freedom of speech or other democratic indexes. So one thing, or which, and during recent visit of American official, they also highlighted the poor indexes or poor democratic performance of India. So as I said, we have to watch and see, and we should be very, very vigilant while monitoring how India is doing that, because India would use this position to support the propaganda campaign against Pakistan. Whether it is, again, I'm repeating myself, but whether it is FATF, the norms, the agendas are not India's priority. Only priority of Indian priority in FATF is to malign Pakistan, is to block Pakistan, and is to create a propaganda bubble. And you know, this is India is the country, how they are talking about terrorism. This is the country which is instigating terrorism even in Indian colony Kashmir. And recently, during a judgment, they said that DSP, I'm forgetting his name, DSP who was arrested for transporting terrorists in Delhi, which was eventually, they believed, it was proven that he was involved in false flag operation. So he is also released, and they said he was released and his work was in the larger security concerns of India. So how that state can be even a part of FATF and call Pakistan or create all this propaganda? But our problem is we also need to be on our toes to bring the correct true picture of India in front of the world.
All right, now, ma'am, let's talk about also some recent developments, the Kashmir Premier League, and how the international players have been deliberately pressurized not to be part of it. This is just one aspect. Then the foreign journalists that were to come to attend the Kashmir, Azad Jammu and Kashmir's Legislative Assembly session on the 5th of August have been denied by India to cross the Wagah border. This and so many others. I mean, you know, I come back to these three priorities that the Indian External Affairs Minister points out. Do you feel that there is going to be some kind of a reaction from the world, especially when, you know, tomorrow is a very important day, it's the 5th of August, and also there are so many other developments that are happening in India. Do you feel still that despite all that we are witnessing, that geoeconomics still hold priority over geostrategy or any other political solution to all of what is happening in India?
See, our BRI project, CPEC project, is an effort to involve geoeconomic interest, or to magnify geoeconomic interest of the regional states in Pakistan. So even if geoeconomic realities are restraining the world's conscious to speak up for these issues, maybe with our economic development that would be answered or addressed as well. But however, whatever India is doing, India is only using, as I said earlier, this COVID phenomena. Like they use this premise that, okay, it is COVID, so we will not allow those journalists to enter Pakistan through Wagah border. But can someone ask Indian government that how those journalists from across the globe, they entered India through airports? Why and how? How was it possible? And Pakistan, like, this is a joke that India, maybe they want to save us from the Indian variant, Delta variant of the COVID, and that is why they are not allowing them to come enter in Pakistan.
I don't think so.
Yes, definitely. I'm sarcastic. So they are only using it, and it also expresses their fear. It also manifests that how much India is afraid of Azad Jammu and Kashmir and people living in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, that they don't even want to give easy access to those to those foreign journalists to come and meet with the people of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, because the difference is obvious. Then they would have first hand information, they would interact as the Kashmiris of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and then they would know that what is the difference of atmosphere, civil liberties, and how people feel differently about different things. So maybe this is the Indian fear, and that is why they believe that the way they have Indian occupied Kashmir has been isolated region, not only within India but for the international community as well, and they are not allowed to enter Indian occupied Kashmir through such means. They would also make Azad Jammu and Kashmir an isolated region where they can restrict the entry of journalists. But I'm sure if those foreign journalists are committed, they can use several other routes to come and see and get this first-hand experience with the people living in Azad Jammu and
Because it's
Kashmir.
very important for the foreign journalists to understand what is happening in our part of Kashmir and what they are perpetrating in their part of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Do you have any apprehensions, Asma, Shakir, Khuwaja Sahiba, about what India might do during this month as President of the United Nations Security Council? Do you feel it will deliberately try to influence, affect other members of the UNSC, or try to pass certain resolutions directly or indirectly?
I believe that India may start building a narrative to hide Indian state terrorism in Pakistan and other neighboring states from the world. So yeah, that would maybe the first agenda. But for that they have to construct whole narrative and a false fog of disinformation. So is what India would start doing. That is the strategic objective, and they can use different tactical moves to achieve that fog of disinformation, to hide the Indian state terrorism, and to shift the focus of the world on the false issues or irrelevant issues. And this is the same the regime is doing within their country when they when they distract the people's attention from the real issue, and indulge them in the non-issue only to hide their poor performance. And they are going to do the same in Security Council as well. And maybe that would provide a bigger battleground or little bigger theater to India to conduct state terrorism in the neighboring states, state-sponsored terrorism in the neighboring state, and hide it as well through using that prestigious forum at international level. And you know that there are so many solid evidences which prove that how India is sponsoring terrorism in neighboring state. And this situation of Afghanistan, India definitely would use this position to hide its Indian state sponsor.
Finally, Asma, Shakir, Khuwaja Sahiba, it has been almost 7 decades. The United Nations resolutions are still pending, and India has been violating these United Nations resolutions in the United Nations, of which it is becoming a president of the Security Council. On the same time, tomorrow, the Articles 370 and 35A in 2019, of course, this was another a non-judicial step that was taken by India. Do you feel that at any point during its presidency that some member of the UNSC might stand up to India and say, you know, now that you are president, you need to uphold the principles and change the perspective of what you've done in the last 7 decades? Do you feel that could happen? If not in action, then in words.
Assumption. This is too good to be true assumption, Omar. I don't see that international community would have that much guts to set aside their economic interests and benefits and stand by morality, human rights, civil liberties, and right to self-determination of an subjugated community. Unfortunately, right now, the international system doesn't support the one who is facing the subjugation, because it is inbuilt. I don't want to go in details, but it is somehow ill-built that this is the elites politics at international level. So no one speaks for poor. All elites are there to safeguard their economic, geopolitical, socio-cultural interests, basically. So unfortunately, I don't see anytime soon. But the moment we would enhance the geo-economic stakes of the regional countries in Pakistan, and and somehow we can use it as a, like, maybe then world would speak for Kashmir, when Kashmir would be a threat for the international economic interest.
Well, we
Then
can
maybe
remain
different, but
positive,
right
we
now.
can remain optimistic, Asma Shakir Khaja Sahiba, that maybe, just maybe, better sense will prevail amongst the different members of the United Nations Security Council, and they might highlight what India has been perpetrating
Yeah,
while it is
Pakistan
president of the
needs to
UNSC.
work
Thank you, ma'am.
proactively.
Thank you for having joined us and to have talked to us about India's role, and of course, now that it has become president of the UNSC, of how it is going to go forward. And of course, I wanted to talk also about the three priorities that the Indian External Affairs Minister had pointed out. Thank you very much to have talked to us about this. Let's go towards Turkey and the fires that have engulfed Turkey, and of course are also encircling the thermal power plant in Turkey as we speak. More than 100 fires in different regions of Turkey. A lot of fires have been taken care of, but the fires are still raging. More in the following report.
The world is seemingly standing at the brink of a hidden crisis as natural disasters, including wildfires and hurricanes, are incessantly inflicting irreparable damage to global and local economy. The latest country bearing the brunt of soared global temperatures is Turkey, as wildfires went unbridled in southern coastal region. According to Turkish authorities, most of more than 100 blazes that erupted in Turkey in the last 5 days have been contained, while the death toll rose to 8 on Sunday. As per the EU stats, Turkey has been hit by 133 wildfires in 2021 so far, compared to an average of 43 by this point in the year between 2008 and 2020. It's pertinent to mention here that a heat wave across the southern Europe, fed by hot air from North Africa, has triggered deadly blazes across the Mediterranean. According to climate experts, the explosive mix of soaring temperatures, strong winds, and climate change are increasing both the frequency and intensity of such blazes. Though this environment catastrophe is apparently triggered by climate change, but reportedly the prospects of arson are also being investigated by Turkish authorities.
And we hope that Turkey comes to some kind of a solution as far as these fires that are raging in different parts of Turkey are concerned. And of course, our wishes and prayers go with the people of Turkey. And finally, COVID-19. And we will be talking about this in our next shows. But of course, we need to be extremely careful and follow the SOPs. That's it for the moment. We'll see you tomorrow. Allah Hafiz.